All right, folks, Nick Norelli here, inspired by my friend Chris Tilling posting a video to YouTube earlier about the stack of books that he's working through at the moment, either reading for the first time or rereading. And, I thought I should do the same. My stack isn't nearly as large as Chris's. It's not as varied. He's got some stuff in there on chess. He's got some theology, some biblical studies, German, English, bunch of good stuff. Mine is a little more all in the same wheelhouse. First up, I got John the Theologian and his Paschal Gospel, Prologue to Theology. This is by Father John Bear, formerly of St. Vladimir's Theological Seminary. And I heard Bear on a podcast last year talking about this book, and he was saying in his scholarly career, he started off with The Way to Nicaea and then the Nicene Faith. For those not familiar, it's 3 volumes collectively. The Way to Nicaea takes you basically from the New Testament up until Nicaea. The Nicene Faith takes you from Nicaea, roughly to like Constantinople and shortly thereafter, really with the Cappadocians and stuff like that. But he said he wanted to get before that, so then he did the case against Diodore and Theodore, which are primary texts that have been translated. He offers an extensive introduction and a history of the events surrounding that. But then he said he still had to get even before that, so he goes and he translates Origen's On First Principles, and he offers a wonderful introduction to that, which is worth the price of the 2-volume set alone. And then still he wanted to get even before that, so now it brings him back to John. Obviously the author of the 4th Gospel, one of Jesus's inner circle. So I've only read up to like page 9 in this, and then I put it down. I can't remember why I put it down, but Bear's just, he's a brilliant historian, great insight into what was going on in the ancient world. From what I've heard him say about this book, I'm very excited to read it. He brings together, scripture, patristics, a French phenomenologist named Michel Henry. So very, very much looking forward to this. In the same vein, Retrieving Nicaea by Khaled Anatolios, The Development and Meaning of Trinitarian Doctrine. I've had this for years. I've read a little bit of it. I am ashamed to say I haven't finished it. So, now it's high time that I pick it up and see what Anatolios has to say. Brilliant, brilliant guy. Knows everything there is to know about Athanasius. Again, another brilliant guy, Thomas Aquinas. Summa, contra Gentiles, book 1 on God. And I've read some of the Summa Theologica, namely the stuff having to do with the Eucharist and the doctrine of the Trinity. I've not read the Summa contra Gentiles, so I picked up the whole set from University of Notre Dame Press a couple months ago when they were having a sale. So I want to get through that. This is the one I've been reading, which is James R. Payton Jr.'s The Victory of the Cross, Salvation in Eastern Orthodoxy. I'm about 4 chapters into this. He covers sin and what sin does to us and our relationship with God. He covers the Eastern view of the cross and how the cross is, obviously intimately associated with the resurrection. And we sang a song in church the other day saying the cross has the final say, or the cross has the final word, something like that. The Orthodox would say, well, no, the resurrection does, because obviously he trampled down death, and death is the last enemy to be defeated, so Christ rose victorious. But in addition to that, the chapter I'm in now, it's on the Father's focus on Christ in Scripture. So it's really about their Christological hermeneutic, the way that Christ taught the apostles to read the Scriptures by, pointing out the things pertaining to him. So when the fathers read the Scriptures, they were looking for Christ everywhere. They were interested in authorial intent, but they viewed God as the author, and first and foremost, what God had to convey about Christ in the Old and New Testaments was more important than even what Isaiah or Ezekiel or Moses or any of the authors meant to their primary audience. So, obviously modern scholars are going to take issue with that, but take it for what it is. So, yeah, I'm in the 4th chapter of that. I should be able to finish this one out sometime this week. I have Father Alexander Schmemans for the Life of the Word, or Life of the World, I'm sorry. And this one's about the sacraments and orthodoxy. Looking forward to that. I've also been reading his book on the Eucharist, Sacrament of the Kingdom, and this is excellent. Last week I taught in Bible study on communion. We did what was supposed to be a 7-part series. It ended up being a 6-part series because I had to miss a week. But we wrapped it up talking about communion, the Eucharist as communion. First and foremost, our communion with God, but then also our communion one with another. And we looked at the book of Acts, how they gathered together to break bread, and they gave attention, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, the breaking of bread, the prayers. And, we looked at that, and then we looked at how communion, it's a participation in the body and blood of Christ. So we're communing with Christ, but we're also communing one with another. And this is why Paul said, when you come together, I hear there's divisions among you and factions, and I believe it in part. And he could believe it in part because, he opens up Corinthians saying that. Some people are saying they're of Apollos, some are saying they're of Paul, some are saying they're of Cephas, some are saying they're of Jesus. And he asks the question, is Christ divided? And the answer, he'll answer it later in the book, well, no, he's not divided, he's one, and we're all one body because we partake in the one bread. So communion, it's communion with God through Christ in the Eucharist, but it's also communion one with another in our gathering together to break bread, to proclaim the Lord's death until he returns, and all of that good stuff. So Schmemann, in the early parts of the book, when he talks about the sacrament of the assembly, excellent stuff. It really helped me to think through some of that. And then finally, I have The Son Who Learned Obedience, a theological case against the eternal submission of the Son. This is by D. Glenn Butner Jr. This is a debate I'm very familiar with. I've read and reviewed a lot of the books on the subject, some of them by Kevin Giles, Millard Erickson, Thomas McCall has some stuff to say about that. Who else? Ovi, Bruce Ware. I've seen the debate back in the day between Ware and Grudem and Thomas McCall and who's the other one? Hasker, I think it was. It was Hasker or Yandel, I forget. But I think it was Yandel. But in any event, definitely a debate I'm familiar with. I'm looking forward to seeing Glenn's contribution. Obviously, he sides against any eternal submission or eternal functional subordination position. So I'm looking forward to see how he argues his case. And yeah, so that's what I got on the stack right now. I got a whole library full of books that need to get read, but these are the ones that are jumping to the forefront while I'm home on quarantine. So yeah, that's that. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.